Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Babbitt from Dolby Laboratories, and this is Principles of Dolby Atmos Volume 2, where we're going to concentrate on live encoding and transmission of Dolby Atmos programs. There is some information that is relevant in our Volume 1 of Principles of Dolby Atmos that you might want to review. Here are some links to some more resources that are online. And since these links are not clickable for you, I have a slide later on that has QR codes that you can take a picture of. So don't stress about this. We'll get a little bit more into this as we get going. As I like to start with all my webinars is a little level setting of what is immersive audio. And as I've said before, immersive audio adds the upper plane, a ceiling, if you will, audio source for your 5.1 programs. This is called 5.1.4, which is your typical 5.1 arrangement, which is here on the floor, and then your 4 channels, which is the .4 overhead. This is typically available for home theater systems, but it can go all the way up to something a bit more massive, like this 916 arrangement that we have here. But you don't need to break the bank or tear up your house to install Atmos. There are a number of different options to play back Atmos in the home. There are what we call upfiring speakers or reflective speakers that actually have elements on the top of the cabinets that reflect the sound off of your ceiling and back down to you. And these are actually quite effective. And they come in 5.1.4 arrangements or 7.1.4 arrangements. There are also, of course, sound bars that do the same sort of thing, that reflect the sound off of the ceiling. And there are sound bars with satellite speakers even that kind of give you that 5.1.4 almost discrete sort of sound coming from them with the satellite speakers that actually connect to the main module via Bluetooth, so you don't even need to run any more speaker cables. And of course, there are all sorts of PCs and virtualizers and things that are in mobile devices, tablets and PCs that can do immersive audio and headphones too. So it's pretty extensive. A simplified Dolby Atmos live transmission path currently looks like this. On the left-hand side, we have the event space, the stadium, the arena, wherever that is, and a OB truck, a broadcast truck. To the right of that, we have network operations, master control. There's the studio show. There's the opportunity to insert ads. To the right of that is your cable and satellite distribution delivery, and there's the home reception. Currently, Atmos is carried on uniquely 4K services. So if the event originates in 4K or it's available in the home at 4K, that's an opportunity for it to also carry Atmos audio. In the United States, however, from the broadcast truck, it goes directly to the distribution partner, and it steps over network operations and master control. In Europe, that's different. In Europe, the truck they encode it, instead of encoding it into a delivery format, they encode it into a contribution format known as ED2, and that is received by the network, where they can run that through master control. They can switch in the studio show. They can do highlights. They can add commercial insertions and things like that. That, however, is not leveraged in the United States because the United States generally is not using that contribution codec ED2 for backhaul. What they are using is PCM, which makes it simpler, but there are some drawbacks to that strategy. In any event, from the truck, directly from the truck to the distribution partner, and then from the distribution partner to a premium service or a specialized set-top box in the home that receives that 4K signal and can also receive the Dolby Atmos signal. From an ad insertion standpoint, because it's not hitting network operations and master control into the network, we don't have an opportunity to insert commercials in master control at the network. But there are opportunities to insert commercials in the truck. So that is currently being done. And in Europe, they do have that opportunity, as I said, because they are able to receive that in master control and switch in master control. But in the United States, not so much. Now, in the future, with a 4K signal, that's going to be carried to the home over ATSC3. And it would look something like this, where ultimately network would receive that 4K signal, be able to insert the studio shows, do switches between highlights from other areas in the country that are playing games, insert commercials. From there to relayed to your local station, who would also have an opportunity to add commercials and do program insertions for news breaks and things. And then from there, over the air via ATSC3 to the home, and then, of course, linked to your local cable or satellite head end, which would then relay that over the subscriber service to the home. And everywhere along the line, that would have an opportunity for commercials to be inserted. In essence, replicating what is done today in HD television and in 5.1. So from the truck, what does it look like when we're encoding for delivery? That means encoding directly to an Atmos format for delivery from the truck. Generally in use is the Dolby DP591 that can encode to the Atmos format, what we call Dolby Digital Plus with JOC metadata. And that's typically a 5.1.4 program configuration. That encoded Atmos signal output would then need to be married to video. Now, video needs to be delayed by 12 frames because that's the latency through the 591 encoder. And then that encoded Atmos data stream is embedded into the quadrant 1 of the 4K, of the quad-link 4K signal. And then that runs through a transmission encoder and then relayed to your cable and satellite distribution partner. In Europe, where they're using encoded the contribution codec ED2, that would be pretty much identical, except the latency is smaller. It's only 4 frames at 5994 or 50, and still it's embedded into quadrant 1. It hits a contribution encoder and then is relayed to network operations for switching and master control, ad insertion, and studio shows. Now, these 3 devices, the Dolby encoder and the frame sync and the embedder, are extra equipment that is necessary when you're using this audio encoder, because the DP591 does not pass 4K video. However, there is a product in the market that can do that, and that is the Telos linear acoustic 5291 encoder that encodes to Atmos formats, whether it be Atmos for delivery or ED2 for contribution, and it maintains sync with video. So the extra video delay and the extra embedding is unnecessary when you are using the 5291 product. And if it's ED2, then it hits a contribution encoder and is relayed to master control. If it's a Dolby Digital Plus delivery of Atmos, then it simply hits a transmission encoder and then is relayed to the cable and satellite distribution partner. So it makes the system much simpler with less opportunities, less equipment in the path, and as a result, of course, less potential areas of failure. That QR code is a link to the Telos website for the 5291 spec sheet if you want to take a look at that. Now, encoding for delivery at the network, you have your 10-channel mix that goes to your that is not encoded. Then that would be embedded audio, just discrete audio that hits your contribution encoder and then can actually be relayed to network operations and master control. This is typical of U.S. signal paths. As I said earlier, the United States broadcast industry doesn't generally use contribution audio codecs for delivery to the network. They generally deliver PCM, just baseband audio. And this would enable, or this is the same sort of approach that you would take with Atmos, except you'd have a few more channels. Instead of 5.1, you'd have 5.1.4. So you'd have, instead of 6 channels, you'd have 10 channels going back to network operations and going through master control. In this case, then, you would actually take the presentation audio and relay the first quadrant that contains that audio to your 591 for encoding to the Atmos format. Again, delay the video, embed into quadrant 1, the Atmos audio into quadrant 1, hit your transmission encoder, and then deliver to your cable or satellite distribution partner. This looks like a bit of complicated workflow, but in essence, it's the same thing that I just described happening in the truck. It's just that there's a few more arrows since we're having a stop off at network for master control switching, for ad insertion, and for studio shows. But as I mentioned earlier as well, a lot of this area can be greatly simplified by the use of the linear acoustic 5291 box, where then the signal path again is much more streamlined. It's simpler. It simply takes that production video in your 4K format and encodes it, maintaining all of the sync relationships that are present at the input, and then relaying that to your transmission encoder, and then off to the next step in the delivery chain to the home. So how do you deal with switching different programs in an Atmos format? If you're delivering an Atmos experience, you can simply just maintain that Atmos experience and relay the number of channels in whatever program that is being inserted, whether it's an advertisement that might be stereo or program interstitial that might be produced as 5.1. You can simply just maintain that and allow the signal path to kind of accordion a little bit, where the overheads are present during the actual program, the sporting event, the entertainment event, whatever it happens to be. Then during a commercial, it goes to stereo, and then it actually then opens back up when it goes back to the program. And this can be useful in highlighting the production differences between the program itself and the commercials or the programs that are being inserted. And it can serve as a reminder to the viewer at home that they're getting something special when that program comes back and the overheads light up again and they get that immersive experience. Alternatively, you can maintain an immersive experience all the way through, from the program to the inserted commercial to the news break to whatever, then back to the program, simply by using typical upmix techniques that are very commonly used currently in 5.1 workflows. It's just that now this workflow is an immersive workflow, so it uses the immersive format of your choice, 514 or 714. This, again, linear acoustic box, this UpMax immersive sound field controller, ISC, is capable of doing that very easily and automatically. It will sense the number of channels on the input, and it will add those channels or upmix those channels to that format when it senses that those channels are not present. And it does that very effectively. So there's a couple of ways that you can do that and manage that immersive experience, either maintaining Atmos all the way through or allowing the programs to maintain their integrity in the number of channels that they're created and allow that program to kind of expand or contract depending upon what program is being displayed at the time. So how do you then avoid what I call dual production? How do you avoid having to create not only an immersive program, but also continue to provide your 5.1 program or continue to provide your stereo program without having to create them simultaneously? Well, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. These are proven methods that are actually in use today. The first one is what I call the brute force method. And what this does is you simply just take that 514, that immersive mix, and you just drop the overhead channels and use just the 5.1 program audio for your 5.1 delivery, for your HD delivery. This can be done particularly if the overhead channels are containing mostly, if not solely, event ambience, crowd noise, stadium sound, that sort of thing. And this is a very easy thing to do. You just simply ignore those 4 channels and deliver the 5.1 part of your 5.14 program to your HD delivery path. And this works quite well. However, if you do have unique elements in the overheads, like for instance, you have maybe a referee microphone that you put up there, or you have PA elements that you want to maintain up there, although that might be arguable, but there might be other elements up there that you want to maintain or in the 5.1 program so you don't lose any audio. And there are conventional methods to do this. There are a number of devices that are commonly available in the broadcast path. I've named 2 of them here from our friends at Cobalt and our friends at Evertz. They have features that allow what is kind of like a static fold down of those 4 channels into the corner channels of your 5.1. So if you have left and right front overheads and left and right rear overheads, those would be then folded accordingly into the left front and right front, left surround and right surround channels. And the level can be adjusted. And at that point, then you have your 5.1 program, and you have preserved all of the audio in there. And this can be easily done. This is done in an automatic fashion. Once you have that formula of the levels and how you want those levels to fold in, then it can be actually quite easy to do this. Then the production effort upstream, as with the previous example, the production effort upstream becomes focused on just creating the Atmos master or the premium experience from which all experiences, the 5.1 experience or stereo experience, all of those are derived from that premium Atmos experience, and it works very, very nicely. A future approach would be getting that sort of capability built into the transmission encoder, where the transmission encoder receives your 10-channel Atmos mix, and that transmission encoder is set to take those channels and create a 5.1 from that, or a stereo from that, and it can do this just automatically. This is something that we're currently looking into. It's a future sort of thing, but this is kind of the way that would make things just more automatic. for everyone. They start with the Atmos, they feed it into the encoder, everything kind of just happens. So in summary, I know this was quick, but in summary, backhaul of live Atmos can be achieved either through baseband PCM, discrete PCM, or an ED2 contribution link. PCM generally is simpler, it's cheaper, and it's easier to implement. ED2 has some neat capabilities, particularly if your backhaul channel map is very dense. You don't have room for 10 channels of discrete audio. ED2, you can leverage ED2, and that could give you some advantages downstream in that ED2 contains metadata that can allow things to automatically switch, allow encoders to switch their behavior from an Atmos program to a non-Atmos program and go back and forth. So there's some advantages to ED2. Generally, the main advantage for PCM is that the workflow is very, very simple. And it's cheaper and it's very, very easy to implement. We can implement this very easily on existing workflows, backhaul workflows very easily. The linear acoustic solutions make things a lot easier in general. You don't need the extra frame syncs for delay. You don't need the extra embedding cycle. Everything can happen in one box. So this is clearly a leap forward in the ability to deliver and encode Atmos programs. And to help avoid dual program production efforts, you can simply just forget about the overheads. Just use the 5.1 if you want to. If there's no critical elements in there, if there are critical elements in there, there are things off the shelf. There are products off the shelf that can do a static fold down of those 4 channels into the quarter channels, left front, left rear, right rear, to ensure that there's no loss of audio. That everyone on the HD side gets the same audio elements, not the same experience, but the same audio elements as the folks who are receiving your 4K signal and the full Atmos experience. And finally, upmixing or not, it's your choice. If you want to have that change, that would then highlight the Atmos effort that your team is doing, that your team is creating with that 4K program, then don't upmix. Go ahead and send that stereo advert or that 5.1 interstitial or that 5.1 feature or stereo feature. And then when it comes back to the program, things open up. It gives the viewer at home the sense that there is something special with that program. Alternatively, if you want to light up that Atmos light all the time, then upmix everything. These things happen. It's very easy to do. There are systems and products in place that can do this very, very easily. Here are those QR codes that I mentioned earlier that will link to the volume 1 of my Principles of Dolby Atmos, as well as a few other webinars that are interesting and may be useful if you haven't seen them already. Here are 3. And then there is our authoring tool tutorial and info site. And here are some more webinars for you. Go ahead and take a picture. It gives you access to that QR link, gives you access to those links. So that's what I have for you today. I hope that this has been an educational and interesting seminar for you, and thank you for your time, and stay safe, everybody.